I highly recommend that you never, ever do a 50-50 business partnership. Someone's got to be able to make the decision. And I remember Walt Disney Internet Group coming to us and trying to buy our company and being blocked by the person with the other 50%. And kind of takes all the wind out of your sails when you put all of this time and effort in, and you get somebody like Disney that comes and tries to buy it, and you can't. And you're paralyzed. And it's hard to put your heart and soul into something when you can't make the final decision about it.
This is BizNinja Entrepreneur Radio with your host, Tyler Jorgensen.
Welcome out to BizNinja Entrepreneur Radio. I'm your host, Tyler Jorgensen, and today we have a guest who is highly familiar with the world of podcasting distribution and software and all of those things, and I'm excited to have him out on the show. We have some mutual friends. Welcome out to the show, Nathan Gwilliam.
Thanks for having me on today, Tyler.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I love to start with a root question. When was that moment in your life where you first realized you were an entrepreneur?
That's a great question. When I was in elementary school, there was a program that they did where kids would go to 4 days of classes and still be responsible for all the homework. But then one day a week, they would take you out and you had these other assignments that they would give you. And when we were in that program, it was probably my sixth grade year, they had us create businesses, and they divided the students in this program into four businesses, and they gave you assignments like create a marketing plan, things like that. And they allowed you to earn fake money based on these projects that you did. And I loved it. It was something that really resonated with me. So that was probably the first.
That's really cool.
Opportunity.
I wish that we had more of those programs in our public education system.
Me too.
It's so like all the real life skills things instead of, memorizing when the War of 1812 was. But
I could never remember that one.
Yeah, that's the trickiest one out there. What was your first, so you did some business plans in sixth grade. What was your first real jump into business? Like, we'll call it your first real company. What was the first thing you did?
Yeah, so my freshman year in college, I never heard of the internet one time. Okay, that was 1992 to 1993, and I had never even heard of the concept. And I went to Brazil for a couple of years as a volunteer missionary between my freshman and sophomore year. And while I was gone, the internet exploded. And while I was there as a volunteer, I fell in love with these street kids that would always ask me for money. And as a volunteer, that change in my pocket ran out really fast. And I wanted to do something that made a lasting difference in their lives. And I came back and I vowed to do something that would help those kids. And I saw with the internet that opportunity. And so I decided to write a business plan on how to help children through adoption using the internet. Oh. And it ended up winning a couple of business plan competitions and got me started. I got a little bit of capital, not very much. And my father put in a little bit of seed capital, and we were off to the races with that first venture, which became adoption.com, which was the world's most used adoption platform.
Yeah, wow. That's pretty amazing. Most people's first does not become a major .com like that. And that's pretty cool to have, been able to do that through raising friends and family rounds. What were some of the early lessons that you learned in that very first venture that you still use today?
Yeah. So first of all, I give all the credit to God. Like without him, we couldn't have achieved it. I could tell you story after story of things that I didn't do that he made possible. And so I guess the first most important lesson, if you're a person of faith, is let God be your business partner. Do work that you can get God's help on. Do something that you're helping making the world a better place, and you're helping other people. You're not just making a buck, but you're making a difference. And involve prayer, and he'll help you. And I certainly saw that in that first venture. That was probably the biggest lesson that I took away. never would have made it without him.
And I think, even for people who may not be, super faith-based, but the concept of making the world a better place, right? I think entrepreneurs, you can build anything. Why not build something that actually betters the community and betters the people around you and improves things? And, there's a lot of ways to make a buck, right? So might as well make it in a way that you can sleep well at night.
That's right. I agree.
Yeah. And what about maybe just some more, brass tacks of just maybe some early mistakes? Was there an early failure that happened and that you had to overcome?
Oh, probably the biggest mistake I made early on is I didn't believe in myself. And I thought, I gave away 50% of the ownership in that first venture that I should not have given away. And I highly recommend that you never, ever do a 50-50 business partnership. Someone's got to be able to make the decision. And I remember Walt Disney Internet Group coming to us and trying to buy our company and being blocked by the person with the other 50%. And kind of takes all the wind out of your sails when you put all of this time and effort in, and you get somebody like Disney that comes and tries to buy it, and you can't, and you're paralyzed. And it's hard to put your heart and soul into something when you can't make the final decision about it. So don't do that.
I hear a lot of early founders that they make that some type of an early partnership mistake, whether it's they gave up too much equity or the wrong person or whatever it may be. And there's two roads that I see them go. Sometimes they say, never have a partner. Other ones are like, no, but here's how to make better decisions about partnerships.
Yeah.
Here's how to maintain control. Are you, in general, for an early stage entrepreneur, are you pro partnership, or what's your general advice there?
I think the partner would need to bring something substantial to the table. And I think partnerships can work really well if you get the right partner. I think most of the time people pick the wrong partner and it doesn't work out really well. So if you do go in, make sure you have it all spelled out. You know how to get out of it or separate or move on if it's not working.
Yeah.
But
let's close the loop. Yeah, go ahead.
If you can find a partner that accents your weakness, that really does bring something to the table, absolutely go for it, do it, but keep control of the company. Do it in a way that you still can make those final decisions that need to be made, and you're not paralyzed.
Yeah, I think that's an important distinction than rather than just say partnerships are bad, right? It's like write smart ones, do it well.
Yeah.
Let's close the loop on that and then move on. What ended up happening with adoption.com? How'd you move on from that eventually?
Yeah, we had a great exit, sold for millions and millions of dollars, and it's fun to be able to make a difference and make a profit and provide for your family. And those social entrepreneurship ventures are kind of addictive. Yeah. And so I sold to an adoption agency based in Fort Worth, Texas, and I ended up staying with them for 3 years and helping kind of transition the business to them. And I'm not a great employee. I'm a better entrepreneur.
Yeah, 3 years is a lot longer than most founders stay. So that's impressive. So you sold the company, and obviously then you just, the next thing you did was an instant hit, right? Like, how did it go? A lot of people, after they have that first big win, the next couple of things they dabble in, are not always the right fit. What'd you do after you exited?
So my first venture was not my first exit. I did some other ventures while I was doing that first venture. And I actually exited 2 ventures before I exited my first venture. And so I had some issues with a partnership with that first one. And I stepped away from the business for a bit. And I started a consulting firm. And most of my businesses have been built around digital platforms, either building digital platforms for myself or building them for other people. And so we were able to do some fun digital platforms for other people after I stepped away from adoption.com that first time. We built, if you know David Neeleman, who's built 5 airlines, he did JetBlue, for example. Mm-hmm. I've done 2 ventures for him.
Oh, cool.
When he did Azul Airlines, I speak Portuguese because I went to Brazil on my mission. And so I helped him develop and execute his digital strategy. And we built a platform. It was Brazilian travel social network for him. And he became the fastest growing airline in aviation history in those early days with Azul. That was a fun project. And there's a guy named Carlos Martins. He's a billionaire down in Brazil. And I've been able to do 3 or 4 different projects for him. So I was able to go work for some entrepreneurs that were much more successful and much smarter than me. So for more than a decade, right out of college, I was doing it myself and figuring out myself. And it was really fun to invest in myself and actually go back and do work for these other people. Paul Allen, who did Ancestry.com, I did a couple of ventures for him. I was the CEO of one of his companies and positioned it and sold it. And was the chief revenue officer of one of his other companies. And I added $5 million of revenue in the first year. And it was just phenomenal for my development as an entrepreneur to take a break from my entrepreneurship and go do consulting for these other incredibly smart entrepreneurs.
That's, I think, something that a lot of entrepreneurs miss is that you can have the entrepreneurial spirit, you can be an entrepreneur, but there are still things to learn that you can only learn by working inside of somebody like a big machine, right?
Yeah.
If you're working for a company that's growing to thousands of employees and is an international workforce, that's a lot different of a company to run, if you're a 12-person agency or something like that. And so what were some of those big lessons when you worked on those projects, like Azul Airlines or the ones you worked on with Paul Allen, that you were able to take back and apply into your ventures?
Yeah. One of the big lessons is that each of those entrepreneurs that was wildly successful was so different. And the way they ran their company was so different. And some people come and tell us, well, this is how a company has to be run. And if they tell you that, they're wrong, because there isn't something like that. And every single one of those successful entrepreneurs was doing it radically different. So as an entrepreneur, you've got to find your style, and you don't have to do it according to some pre-subscribed formula. You got to figure out what works for you. Another lesson that I learned is find what your superpower is and do that, and then surround yourself by people that fill in the holes, that fill in the gaps. For example, David Neeleman. I love David Neeleman. He is such a brilliant entrepreneur. I loved working for him, and he has ADHD. And so his first hire when he goes in a company is he hires an amazing operator. He hires an amazing president and COO next to him, and together those two can move mountains. And instead of going in and saying, "Well, I'm a failure and I'm weak and I can't be a successful entrepreneur," no, you say, "I'm great at this. Here's my weakness. Let's plug that hole." And I think that's an essential element for any successful entrepreneur and CEO to do.
Yeah, that's really powerful. And you hear people talk about that, finding your superpower, leaning into that, building around your weaknesses a lot more now than I think we used to. I think it used to be, even a decade ago, it was more fix your weaknesses, close those gaps. And now it's like, hey, just hire, bring the right people in. And I think it's a good, healthy switch that's happening. Was there ever a time where you resisted that and you're like, oh, I'm gonna just keep doing this, even though it's something that you weren't great? And how'd you overcome it?
Yeah, I've built most of my companies bootstrapping. I normally haven't had a lot of money in my ventures. And so when you don't have a lot of money to hire and fill those holes, you do have to become an entrepreneur. You do have to become a jack of all trades, and you do have to figure those things out. And if you don't get it done, it's not going to happen. So when sometimes small entrepreneurs come in and they want to hire all these big roles and these big executives. And when you're bootstrapping in those early days, one of the other mistakes that I have made before is I've spent too much money, and I've hired too fast, and I've hired too expensive of people too early. And sometimes you've just got to go figure it out. And sometimes you got to go hire that young and hungry person who costs you 20% of what the expensive person does, and go figure it out together and get it done. And sometimes it's better to not go bankrupt spending too much money instead of hiring that expensive person that you think is going to get it done.
Yeah. And I think that's a big difference between a company that's, VC backed or funded, or, where they can spend. They want you to invest in teams and people. But there are times where you're like, if you're bootstrapping, especially, yeah, like you said, as true as it is that an A player is worth more than, way more than a B player or C player, sometimes you just need someone to help and move things
Get
forward,
it done.
right? Yeah,
Well,
it's
and
version one, get it out the door.
And I've paid over, 250,000 for someone that had the experience, but they were not an A player and they didn't get it done. And I've hired someone right out of college that had no experience that absolutely was an A player that got it done. So sometimes it's not the resume that you should pay for. Sometimes it's the person that's hungry and that can get whatever the job is done. That's what you need.
And I think especially in certain roles, the personality type and like work ethic is going to outperform resumes and history, because, certain roles, maybe you really deeply need history and awareness and understanding. But I fully agree with you. Some of my best talent ever has been, just the right people, not necessarily
That's
the
right.
right background. But what are you building now? Talk to us about your current push.
Yeah. So when I was selling adoption.com back in 2019, I did a coaching program. I'm a big believer in accelerating timelines with coaching. And I was being coached by Russell Brunson. And Russell made me a promise. He said, if you'll publish every day for a year, you'll be financially free. And I didn't really want to do it, but I decided to trust him. He's a lot more successful than me, and decided to do what Russell says. And so I created a show about digital monetization, and it was audio and video, social, blog, newsletter, website, all that. And I published every day for a year, and it kicked my butt. It was so hard. I got about 3 months into this thing, and I realized that I needed more than 30 different technologies. And because I wasn't just building an audio podcast, I was trying to build a venture around a podcast. And those technologies cost me almost $2,000 a month. Those technologies were hardly integrated at all together. It felt like I was duct taping them. And they just took way too much time. Even after I'd recorded the episode and edited it, I still had to pay someone 4 hours every day just to do all the extra things around those episodes that had to be done. And one day in frustration, I could see where podcasting was going. You saw what Shopify did, right? Shopify was the first company that brought together 100 different technologies, integrated them so an entrepreneur could build a venture around around e-commerce. And I could see that someone was going to do that around podcasting. And so I knew someone who was going to make billions of dollars doing that. And that was my aha moment. I realized, oh, this should be me. And so 6 years ago, I hired a bunch of talented developers, and we started building this. And I self-funded it for the first 18 months. And then I've raised $6 million. And we now have 60. We tell the world we have 60, but we have 74 tools that are integrated into one platform, one username and password. We have 18 AI tools. We have 10 monetization tools, recording studio, and just all sorts of different tools to help you build a business around this content engine of a podcast. So that's PodUp. And then we have an agency side of our business. We've had a lot of businesses that come to us and say, okay, I know I need a podcast, but I just don't have time. Can I just pay you and you do it for me? And so we built a whole business around that. We opened an office in India, in Jaipur. We have about 40 team members there. They're super talented. And so the CEO will record the episode, and then we do about 40 different services for them. We'll book their guests. We'll edit their video. We'll write their blog posts. We'll publish. We'll syndicate. We'll do their marketing for them. We'll book them on shows. We'll help them develop their monetization streams. And we do it for less than they could probably hire a minimum wage person in the United States to do it. So it's an incredibly cost effective and a super talented team.
Yeah. And I love that you build on both sides of that. Let's dig into PodUp a little bit. So, you got all these different tools built in, and you started this would you say 6 years ago now?
Yeah, started in 2020.
Okay. And so interesting time, rough time to start a business,
Yeah.
right? But at the same time, huge opportunity in podcasting. A lot of people leaned into that with everything going on then. What were some of the things that caught you off guard in that first year? What was a little harder than maybe you expected?
So in my first year, I actually did it. I was podcasting every day for a year. And one of the things that caught me off guard was how many steps were in the process. My podcast had 22 different steps, right? From booking the guest to recording the episode to editing the video, right? And I had no clue how many steps it took, right? The different talents. And so creating the system and the process was incredibly important for me. It was so easy. If you just miss one of those 22 steps, you lose the whole episode, right? It slips through the cracks and you don't have anything to publish, or you have no traffic from it or whatever.
Right.
And so understanding and developing the system and the process solved a lot of my headaches. The other big thing was just how many tools I needed and how disconnected they were and how expensive they were. And it was ridiculous how hard it was. And it didn't need to be that hard. And so when I found that big of a problem, luckily that was a great opportunity for me in our business.
Yeah, awesome. And so you're 6 years in, you've raised capital. You're obviously well in market at this point. What are you guys hoping to accomplish in the next, 2 to 3 years? Like where are you future pacing this business for yourself? Yeah.
So when we first went to market with the software, we were shocked that most of the people that came to us were businesses. We thought podcasters were going to be our clients, and we actually created something for a different audience than what we originally planned on. And we created business grade podcasting, not just, a college student in their garage podcasting.
Sure.
And so we started having a lot of businesses coming to us. So we got to a spot where almost all of our revenue came from businesses in the done for you services. So what we're doing now, and we're about at that profitability point now, working with businesses. So now we're switching and we're trying to get the do it yourself version of the software, which is actually harder because you're not there to help it. You're not there to hold people's hands. You're not there to kind of smooth over if the software doesn't work exactly right somewhere. And so we're now we're putting so much effort into the user experience of the software, the wizards to take people step by step, and the AI to do things for them and save them time and help them get those quick wins in the first 2 or 3 days. And so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to be a software first company where we've been successful to this point as a software enabled services company. So It's a big transition, actually.
Yeah. And I think it's fascinating. It's like after 6 years, you're kind of trying to get back to the original post or idea and focus and avatar. But when you're trying to fund and grow, and you see opportunities and services, it's obvious you're going to keep moving and taking those advantages. What are some cool things that you guys have coming out with PodUp or maybe some recent releases that you're most proud of?
Yeah. So we are doing some super cool things, and AI is enabling some things that are just ridiculous for us. So, after the episode is recorded now, you can click a button and that one button can probably save you 5 hours of time every episode. And that one button we call the repurposer. And so it takes your video and it turns it into like 15 different types of content. And we're adding even more pieces of content that we're rapidly working on over the coming couple of months. But imagine being able to click a button and you get long videos edited with, the audio gets edited and the, different, so many different things happen in there, and the captions get added and the logo gets added and the names and the captions or the titles below the names. And imagine it like, if you're not looking at the camera, it redirects your eyes. Imagine it taking out the the silence that shouldn't be there, and it takes out the ums and the filler words. If the audio is messed up between tracks, it fixes it for you. Like, imagine AI going in and doing all those things, and then writing your blog post for you, and doing your show notes for you, and creating your images for you for social posts, and just saying, here's 15 different versions of your episode, and now you've already integrated 20 platforms. Click a button and it'll go post it for you as well. So we're using AI to take out as many of those steps as possible and automate as many of those things as possible. And almost all of that I told you right there is already working and in place. There's a few of those that are getting finished up.
Yeah, and things are moving so fast right now with AI and the ability to optimize and improve. How is that helping? There's a big difference between where AI was 6 years ago and where it is now.
Yeah.
I mean, it barely existed 6 years ago, it seems.
Yeah, it wasn't even part of our business plan 6 years ago. And what's happened in the last 2 years has just changed everything. I mean, think of the onboarding process. The biggest complaint that we get when a new customer comes on is they say it's overwhelming, right? When you have 70 different tools, it's hard to learn 70 different tools, right? Even if they work great, you could lose the user just because it's too hard to learn. So imagine someone comes in and they sign up for the first time, they just paid, and you say, okay, what are you going to name your podcast? And I'm like, I don't know. So then you use AI, you ask them a couple of questions, you give them the names, and in 2 minutes, they've picked the name of their show. And then you say, okay, what's the logo going to be for your show? And they're like, I don't know. And so then you use AI and you give them 40 different versions of their logo, and they pick the one they like, and it uploads. So in like 3 minutes, they have a name and they have a logo. And then you say, okay, what do you want your website to be? I don't know. And so you ask them a couple of questions, and then AI generates the website for them, right? And gives them their first version. And then you say, okay, let's record your first episode. And you ask them like 5 questions. It creates a script or these little prompts. And then it records their first episode right there while they're in that first intro. And then it goes and edits it for them. And it goes and turns it into 15 types of content. And then right there in just a few minutes, it integrates with all their platforms. And then it syndicates it out. And in like an hour, you've created your podcast, created your website, recorded your first episode, branded it, done your logo, and you're a published podcaster in your first hour. Instead of being overwhelmed, you've got like 6 quick wins in your first hour. Yeah. So it just changes the whole interaction that you have with your users.
Yeah, absolutely love it. I love the speed to actually getting it published. Stops, so many people never finish a project just because it took too long to get started. And, so you started, like you said, at 6th grade. You've now exited a few companies. You're building this amazing one, but life isn't just about building businesses. What's one item on your personal bucket list you're going to accomplish in the next 12 months?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm striving to be the best. My wife and I are empty nesters. Our kids are just out of the house. Youngest child has left the house. And so I'm trying to be the best husband that I can be and develop the strongest relationship I can with my wife. Trying to develop a stronger relationship with my God. And those are probably 2 of my biggest goals right now. I'm also trying to improve my health, trying to exercise a lot more and eat a lot healthier, and kind of reclaim that a little bit.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, I sure appreciate you sharing all your wisdom and insights here with us. And to all my biz ninjas, wherever you're listening, tuning, or watching, it's your turn to go out and do something.